Tonight, News Channel 5 investigates allegations of cheating inside some Nashville schools.
This is making the test results different than what they would have been.
Why would they do that?
The only reason is because they want their scores to go up.
Students pulled from classes to keep them from pulling down their school's test scores.
Sooner or later after that, I just gave up.
One student in particular would just throw the work on the floor.
Teachers ordered to change failing grades to passing.
And you had to give that student a passing grade.
And that student got a 70.
While principals were allowed to make up their own grading policies.
And they told me that you just got confused about the difference between 50 and 60.
Phil Williams investigates the human stories behind the numbers.
They're not the ones that sat and watched her be depressed and sat in her room and not go anywhere and not talk to anyone.
And discovers serious questions.
During our internal review, we have not found instances of gamemanship.
About whether officials were really making the grade.
How close is this to a smoking gun?
I'd say the gun's pretty red hot and it's still smoking.
From your news and information leader, this is a News Channel 5 Investigates Special, Making the Grade.
Hello, everyone. For the past year, our News Channel 5 Investigates team has been digging into the claims of dramatic improvements inside some struggling Nashville schools.
Claims that it turns out may have cheated the children. An investigation that began with 2 whistleblowers grew as more insiders stepped forward along with students who put a face on this controversy.
Now the district is under new leadership and the state is implementing new rules designed to put the brakes on the questionable practices we uncovered.
News Channel 5's chief investigative reporter Phil Williams shows us how it all began.
Y'all ready to get started?
The story of what's happening inside Metro Nashville's high schools has in recent years become a national story, bringing a presidential visit.
The message I want to send here today is we want every child to have every chance in life.
While some of Nashville's high school principals have been asked to share their insights with Congress.
Kids are more than a test score.
As well as the U.S. Secretary of Education, a school district once facing a potential state takeover.
The district has decided to take drastic measures to turn these schools around.
Has more recently generated headlines for dramatic improvements, especially improvements in high school test scores. One national magazine even dubbed it a district of distinction.
When I hear those stories, it makes me angry.
Why?
Because I know they're not true.
That's why these Metro School employees decided to risk it all.
True gains would involve making sure that every student tested.
To blow the whistle on a testing system that they say hides the students who need help the most, all to make the school's test scores look better.
This is manipulating data. This is making the test results different than what they would have been.
It's rigging the game?
Yeah, exactly.
We're taking a test right now.
In Tennessee, high schools are judged largely on the percentage of students who score proficient or advanced on end-of-course exams in 7 subjects, 3 years of English, 2 years of algebra, as well as biology and chemistry.
We were pretty much under the gun to get our scores up. I mean, it was, that's kind of a do or die thing.
Kelly Brown was the lead counselor at Pearl Cone, the lowest performing high school in the city of Nashville. Pearl Cone has tried to carve a niche for itself as an entertainment magnet school. But in April 2014, Brown says her principal brought her a list of students who needed to be pulled from their classes just a few weeks before those critical end-of-course exams.
A lot of them were failing, but not by much. And there were some that were actually passing.
They were actually passing?
Yeah.
And they were pulled from the class?
Right.
When Brown looked at their files, she discovered that the students who were pulled had not done well on a round of practice tests that are supposed to predict how well they'll perform on their exams.
All of these students, the ones that got pulled, have that in common. They did not perform well on the predictive tests.
Why would they do that?
I mean, the only reason is because they want their scores to go up. That's the only reason.
These are students that needed these courses to graduate.
Shona West was the 9th grade counselor at Hunters Lane High School, a school that showed gains on those exams due to what the principal described as a different approach.
Now that we're talking to kids about their data, they understand what they need to learn, and then they can help partner with us in how can I teach this to you in a different way to make sure you learn it.
Some would say, Miss West, why did you change my schedule? And I said, well, I didn't change your schedule. And I thought, well, let me just check the 10th and 11th grade rosters, transcripts, and noticed that, okay, there were more.
So they were pulling the students who had not done well on the practice tests.
Exactly.
District officials say they did approve a policy that lets schools pull students who failed the fall semester of a class to give them remedial help in the spring, what they call credit recovery, expecting that they would make up the second half of the course sometime later and then take the end-of-course exam.
Here you see this.
These former high school counselors showed us plenty of examples of passing grades, a 74, 78, even an 84. In one case, a female student identified to us as Student D was enrolled in Algebra 1 and actually passed the first semester with an 81. But her predictive test suggested she might score below basic on the exam that's used to judge the school. That's the lowest level. That's when she was pulled from the class.
I'm almost done.
Then, like most of the others, Student D was signed up to finish Algebra 1 on the computer using a program that the district calls A+, an assignment that more than a year later, Student D still hasn't completed.
This is pretty alarming. I mean, what you're saying is they were pulled from classes with teachers so that they wouldn't pull down the school's test scores.
Right. They're really basically having to get that information on their own, and they don't. The vast majority of students without real structure and guidance do not finish A+. And they didn't finish A+.
It is the most far-ranging school cheating scandal in American history.
Unlike the cheating scandal in Atlanta, where school officials got caught changing answers on standardized tests, this was a practice that the whistleblowers say played games with students' lives.
If you do this to students, it put them at a great disadvantage because they're constantly behind.
I said, I can't work in a school where we pull students from testing.
Finally, Kelly Brown says she confronted the Procom principal. Her response:
she said, well, all I can say is I was directed to do that, and we're not the only school.
Directed to do that. So if she was directed to do it, it had to have come from
one of her superiors.
We're talking about the central office.
Right, executives.
I just feel like it wasn't right.
And Shona West admits she got into trouble at Hunters Lane when she actually promoted some of the students who had not been allowed to complete their classes.
These students should have had the opportunity to take the course and be promoted and not have to go into credit recovery for something that they didn't fail.
I would never want this done to my own child. Never.
Both women say they know of students who have been hurt by these practices. All at the same time, school officials are busy patting themselves on the back.
Who in their right mind would do this to their child? And if you wouldn't do it to your child, why are you doing it to these children?
It's cheating the children.
It's cheating them.
As a result of the whistleblower's allegations, Metro school officials immediately opened an internal review.
We are taking this very seriously, and we are looking through a lot of data.
And I have a good team of problem solvers, and we're trying to approach this from different directions. If we were going to game the system, where would we go? And we haven't found anything that's come out as being a problem.